Senator Cotton. Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to also convey my immense respect for the men and women who serve in the National Guard, and of course, particularly the two brave soldiers who were shot prior to Thanksgiving, one of whom having since tragically passed away. Today's hearing asks a simple but profound question. What kind of country are we becoming? In August, referring to domestic military deployment, the president said, quote, "Not that I don't have the right to do anything I want to do, I'm the president." Quote, in September, he doubled down, admitting he wants to use American cities as, quote, training grounds, end quote, for the military, telling military leaders to, quote, handle the, quote, enemy from within, before it gets out of control. So we have a president who does not believe that the rule of law applies to him. We have a president who believes that whatever he does and says is lawful. That's why whenever we have witnesses saying that they abide by lawful orders of the president, it makes me question what you think is lawful, because you all believe with the president that whatever he says and does is lawful. Over the past year, this regime has deployed National Guard troops into American cities under legal theories that are untested at best and at worst stretch the law beyond recognition. They have used vague claims of rebellion and chaos to justify putting soldiers with rifles and military vehicles onto our streets, even as crime in many of these cities has actually fallen. Now, this is a regime that does not use facts as the basis for their decisions. We are not here today because local law enforcement failed. We are here because the Trump regime chooses to treat ordinary public safety challenges as a pretext for a sweeping show of force. Again, this isn't about the effectiveness of local law enforcement. How do we know? Because this regime has cut over $800 million in Department of Justice grants to state and local law enforcement for community safety initiatives like policing and violence prevention. We'll hear a lot of illegal stuff, I call it, today, Title 10 versus Title 32, the reach of Section 12406, posse comitatus, but behind those legal debates is a basic question about how we think about the use of power in our democracy. When Americans step out of Union Station in Washington, D.C., for example, do we want them to see soldiers on street corners, military trucks at intersections, and the visible sign of a police state? Or do we want them to see the openness, the energy, and the confidence of a democracy that does not need to put troops on its streets to feel secure? And right now, the daily relationship between Americans and the D.C. National Guard is being fundamentally altered. These deployments are changing how people experience their own capital city and how they view our military. This is not normal. Don't tell me it's normal to have National Guard in, where are the cities? LA, Portland, Chicago, DC, Memphis. Don't tell me this is normal. It is not normal for a president to attack blue cities controlled by Democratic mayors or governors in blue states. This regime has pushed boundaries that prior presidents, Republicans and Democrats alike, respected for generations. And that has to do with the non-politicizing of the military. The American people deserve answers to what we're doing in deploying all these troops to our cities. And, I just want to ask Mr. Young, the president at one point said that protesters should be shot in the street. Is that a legal order?
Senator,
he put no conditions on that.
I'm not aware of the president giving any order to that nature or effect.
He said it to Secretary Esper.
Senator, I'm not aware of that, and I'm not sure when that conversation may or may not have occurred.
Let's say that the president issued such an order. He said so. He said so, okay? Is that a legal order?
Senator, orders to that effect would depend on the circumstances.
Well, the president applied no conditions. So we have a president who doesn't think that the rule of law applies to him, and he wants to show force. And the question I have for Mr. Detlefsen is, I'd like to know what kind of assessments were done as to the impact of these kinds of deployments that have already used up $340 million to date and more, as long as these troops are going to be continued to deploy to the cities that I've mentioned and others. Like, what kind of assessment done by whom as to what the impact of these deployments are on our readiness and other questions that should be of significance?
Can you
for
answer
you?
that question briefly, Mr. Detlefsen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question, Senator. In the department, we are constantly assessing all costs related to these deployments, readiness costs, fiscal costs, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt, this is not having a negative effect. This is a modest burden on the department. Most of these deployments are reimbursable in nature. They're not a Department of War bill. And the number of troops that have been deployed are very small relative to the overall National Guard force. And the National Guard Bureau has given us those assessments and said this is not negatively affecting them.
Thank you.
I find
Thank
that
you,
hard to
Senator
believe.